We are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us. Coming to you live and direct this morning on the Plus as well as on Facebook at newschannel5.com. Any questions or comments? As you see, Jim Shulman joining us here in studio. We're a good separation apart. And before we get to the phone calls and more of the comments from viewers, Jim, one thing, there's every day they've had announcements, in terms of what's happening in Metro at 9:30, that news conference. And I think this will be very helpful. You're under the impression that we may hear today an announcement of a heat map, which shows some of the hot zones in the city? Yeah,
so always a good idea to watch that press conference if you can, with Mayor Cooper and a number of different people representing, the health department. Dr. Alex Jahangir is going to be there, and I think what they're going to be able to show you is kind of a heat map of Davidson County with the areas where there's more of more of these cases are coming. So just like everything else, if you look at the Johns Hopkins map and you look at the entire country, I mean, your guess, if we were trying to guess and we hadn't looked at the map, where the majority of the cases in this country, they're in New York. Densely populated, New York City, the entire state of New York, that's where by far the majority of the cases are. People traveled there. I mean, there was so much stuff going on. That's why the majority of the cases are there. You could almost guess in Davidson County, where are the most cases? Now we have over 1,000 cases confirmed, but the majority of the cases are going to be where the more dense populations are going to be. But I think it's well worth watching. The more information you have, the better it is.
And I guess by knowing these zones, then it helps put the resources there to do the testing. And from my perspective, unless I have to go there, if you tell me there's a hot zone somewhere, I'm not going.
Well, you're really not supposed to be going anyway.
Well, you're right. I'm just saying, if and I do, I'm still going to go to the grocery store.
Right, I got that.
And I'm going to wear a mask and I'm going to do social distancing.
Right.
But I will choose to go to a location where there is not in the heat map.
But I think what's really important by all this is that I have great confidence in the folks that are doing this from our Metro Health Department. I think I applaud Mayor Cooper and his team for all their work. We're staying in touch with them. They're doing a tremendous amount of work, and I think a very, very good job of trying to do the best they can under these circumstances. But what the heat map, I think, is showing them is that they can look at that and make determinations. So if there's particular areas that show higher instances of COVID-19, then you put the testing sites there. And they've obviously got testing sites open. Vanderbilt has had their testing sites open, and now Metro has 3 sites open as well. And so they're watching the data, they're watching it very carefully, which makes me feel like the right people are paying attention to the right type of information and are giving you the right information when they have the press conference. It's very important.
Let's take a few phone calls. We'll go to Reverend Fuzz. Reverend, good morning. Hi, Reverend Fuzz.
Hey, Nick. Good morning, Vice Mayor.
Hello, Pastor Fuzz.
A couple of quick questions about the COVID-19. This coming Sunday is Easter. And it was so disturbing that I got a call yesterday from a very prominent West Tennessee pastor who was planning to have a parking lot service where people sit in their cars. And I said, I thought we had a stay-at-home order. I'm thinking that here in Nashville, I saw a couple of churches that had services a couple of weeks ago. And I'm struggling to get over those 2 guys being like that. That's a hard problem right there. So I wanted to ask you, what's our compliance looking like in Nashville, especially with Easter coming up? What have we got in place to make sure that people kind of stay at home? Because that's what I'm seeing. It's the only thing, and you can correct me, the only thing around the world that's gotten this under control was these stay-at-home kinds of things. I don't know if you got something else. And I'm concerned that Nashville's messaging wasn't clear enough for an old man like me to remember what the mayor said. What did he say? Stay at home, safe at home, safer at home? What am I supposed to do? So just kind of clearly outline that again for individuals, religious organizations, and that's just my kind of thought, okay?
Thank you, Reverend, as always. Appreciate it. And good questions. I'm kind of with him on some of the confusion there.
So Pastor Fuzz makes a good point. Obviously, Easter is coming up. this Sunday, and I think it's probably important to take Pastor Fuzz's message, first of all, to convey out to all the religious leaders around the city and the state and say, you need to be very, very careful. Inviting people back out, basically, you know, is contrary to what the governor and the mayor in this case are saying, where you should be safer at home. You should be able to practice your religious beliefs at home, tie in, figure out another way to do it instead of getting people to come back out. Again, if you remember, we are trying to get on the other side of this thing. It's very important to be very careful, and when you start trying to bring people together in terms of a mass gathering, even if it's people sitting in the cars, what you're concerned about is that people start getting out of the cars and start mingling. Not a good idea. I think what I will do is pass this information along both to Mayor Cooper, and I'll send it up to Governor Lee's office and say, particularly at this very important religious time for so many different types of religions, probably a good idea to re-stress that people need to be safer at home, and ministers, pastors, rabbis, anybody involved in this, they need to make sure that they are pushing forth the same effort everybody else is, practicing social distancing. So Pastor Fuzz, good point,
Yeah.
and I will pass it along.
I'll tell you this, you know, Jim, the pastor's a good man, and he's right on point, and he wouldn't say it, but I will. Any pastor, priest, reverend in this state, come Easter Sunday, that holds services in a packed congregation is irresponsible, period. And those who go are irresponsible, period. That is not to be done. Is anyone going to enforce it? No, but you're being irresponsible. And the important point here is the efforts, you know, to do the big drive-in screen, Jim, and having the cars out. And that's a safe alternative if you don't get out of the cars. But most of the responsible churches out there have found ways to stream this online, okay? And you can watch your services. And I understand Easter Sunday, and it's a very important service, and people want to be a part of it, and they want to worship. But if you're packing into a church, that is wrong. And there's no other way to cut it, period. And it's unfortunate that I anticipate there are going to be some churches that are going to be crowded this weekend. And if it is, and if it does happen, it is wrong. And it's unfortunate that's not being shut down.
Well, I saw in the national news where I think they arrested a minister or a pastor.
A couple of them in Florida.
Florida, maybe Louisiana. And just listening to the interview, it was sort of like, hey, this religion, you know, we have to practice. This is very important. What they're missing is, I understand the importance of the religious practices, but we're in a time that they need to weigh what they're doing. They can still have their religious practice, but they are putting so many people at risk by bringing people together. That is so dangerous. And, you know, I would guess that, I don't think I'm wrong at this, that 99% of the people, 100% of the people don't really want to continue to be stuck at home. They want to get on the other side of this. They want to be able to go back to what they wanted to do and go back to work and go the places they want to do. By bringing people together, you're taking the risk that we're just prolonging this thing, and we're going to expand it and make it worse. One person can infect another person, and then it just spreads so quickly. And you bring all these people together in a mass congregation, you're taking a serious risk.
Couldn't agree with you more. Let's go next to Christy. Christy, good morning. Do you have a question for the Vice Mayor? Hi, Christy.
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I actually have two questions. The first is, I'd like to know what the city's response is to our unhoused and homeless population and what we're doing to try to get people into housing so they can shelter in place. My second question is, what is the mayor's office doing to urge the governor to expand our unemployment through the CARES Act to include gig economy workers and self-employed workers?
Good. Great questions, both of them.
Yeah.
I know we addressed the homeless population last time, and things are being done. I know with the rescue mission as well over there at the fairgrounds, right? They've expanded considerably.
Right. And actually, and I appreciate both questions. I know that efforts have been made by the mayor's office to deal specifically with the homeless population, particularly at the fairgrounds, and I know that they're trying to figure out how to make sure that they keep people safe as they're housing people. So it has not, it's an issue, but it hasn't flared up to the point where, at least I haven't heard of any serious issues. Now, I will tell you that I have a call later this morning to talk specifically about this to make sure that if there are serious issues going on, that we actually address them. Metro Social Services has done this. What I will tell you, just from as vice mayor, I'm not in the mayor's office, but I get information and then I watch like everybody else. They're trying to stay 2 or 3 steps ahead. So by opening up the Music City Center and by dealing with the homeless population, they're trying to understand what they need. They're trying to provide shelter beds, and they're also trying to make sure that if people get sick, how do you deal with that? So I'll know more after this conversation later this morning, but I know that steps are being taken to deal with the homeless population. In terms of Christy's second question, I'm not necessarily privy to all the conversations between the mayor and the governor, but I get calls every so often about unemployment and sole proprietors and how all this stuff works. My guess is that the governor, along with his commissioner of labor and workforce development, connected to mayors all across the state, are trying to sort through this thing and make sure that it's done correctly. I know that I think people are somewhat confused because there's a lot of, you've got the federal stuff going on, you've got the state stuff going on, you've got the city stuff going on. If you don't know, call your local official, call your council member. I get calls, you can call me, and then we try to direct you to the right place to get information. But there are so many moving pieces on this thing that keep calling, and we'll keep trying to make sure that we get your right information. That's about the best I can tell you at this point.
All right, we'll take a quick break on that. When we come back, we'll start ripping through a bunch of phone calls and more of the comments coming to us right now on Facebook at newschannel5.com. Everyone stay with us. More with the Vice Mayor right after this.